You gonna show me the money.
Good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 1059 The Zone. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app and the Zone 1059.com. Lane Kiffin versus Ole Miss, round 6. By September 19th, I don't know what round we'll be in. I don't know if it'll be 40th round, 60th round, or what. Mississippi National Guard, I would think will be there on both sidelines, all around the LSU bus. I don't know where they'll stay, I guess in Tupelo. I guess they'll be guarded from there and going into Vaught Hemingway throughout the game and then coming back out. September 19th. If you thought it was big, Lane wanted to make it bigger. So he did a Vanity Fair piece in which he threw Ole Miss under the bus, making claims that race is still a big issue with Ole Miss and Oxford, and that recruits / parents, grandparents told him that they wouldn't send their kids there. And that, I paraphrase that.
Right.
Okay. And that sent it over the edge. If you thought we were on DEFCON 1, the nuclear, we're in nuclear warfare. This is it. And so I don't know where this goes from here. I'm just covering it. We covered Lane and Ole Miss. We'll cover Lane, LSU, and Ole Miss. He's also going to play Mississippi State, but he'll beat them by 100. And that's in Baton Rouge, and nobody will really care. That could be, well, I was going to say that could be an 11 a.m. kickoff, but 11 a.m. kickoffs are becoming the sizzle. Like, the networks are realizing how many eyeballs you get. You're getting eyeballs all day now. College football just shattered ratings last year, right? Regardless of time slot. The 11 a.m., the mid-afternoon, and the nightcap, because we talk about it. We separated into the Tito's Vodka Bloody Mary game at 11 a.m. Mid-afternoon is getting the grill ready to go, or you're tailgating. And then the night is, steak and bourbon. But September 9th, because I don't even think you can really classify Mississippi State playing in a big game this year until they win a couple of games, Jackson. Yeah.
Big game.
But Ole Miss, this sizzle, Pete Golding got promoted from within. He coached under Lane. Lane spent 6 unbelievable years putting Ole Miss on the map and making them relevant in football. Also helped them in another 100 different ways as far as revenue streams and more kids from out of state wanting to go to Ole Miss, and
the list goes on.
Yeah, restaurants, Airbnbs, real estate going up, hotels, the whole thing. My God, Starkville's still packed and they can't win a damn football game.
Right.
Oxford hasn't lost but one home game in 3 years. In football. Mississippi State hasn't won a home SEC game since Mike Leach. So back to September 19th and Lane going, I don't even know what his thought process is. I actually do think that this is not the part about Ole Miss and race. The part about him growing up and moving 7 times, and all he ever knew was Monty Kiffin, his dad, who coached in college but coached years in the NFL. The part of the article that really jumped out at me until you got into the stuff where he just went nuclear is that Lane moved 7 times growing up. And I think that's part of the disconnect. And Monty always looked at his job as transactional. And Lane was a loner. They moved different places. I'm assuming he would kind of meet people and then all of a sudden they were gone again, right? A lot of you have moved around, and some of you thrived in it. Some of it was challenging. There's positives and negatives, but the bottom line is he moved 7 times. Your dad's fired when your dad's a football coach, and Monty Kiffin, once the NFL struck, it's purely transactional in the NFL. I'm here to do a job for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers. That's it. It doesn't have that collegiate, nostalgic flair. Not that NFL fan bases aren't crazy pills passionate.
Right.
But Monty Kiffin looked at it like, totally transactional. I got hired by the Buccaneers. I wear their pullover. If I don't perform, they will fire me. I can't get lost in post-World War II industrial age banking or government work or any number of kind of big business work and kind of stay there for 25 or 30 years and not really be no metrics to really follow what I'm doing on a monthly, quarterly basis. Okay? It's very simple. If Tampa Bay goes 6-11, I'm getting fired. Or 4-12, I'm getting fired.
Right.
All right? And that means I go home and I'm imagining Monty walking in the house and going, pack up, we're leaving. That's it. I mean, I was never really connected to this place. I was never nostalgic about it. I coached for the Minnesota Vikings. They paid me. They fired me. We're moving on down the road. That's how Lane looks at college football until he gets to the NFL. Now, let's reset here. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. He's crazy and brilliant, but so many people are that we follow. Coaches, politicians, entrepreneurs, from Elon Musk to Trump to Obama to Lane. You know, so many of them are bat blank crazy and yet very talented. Okay? And that's what we have with Lane Kiffin, and he's on the spectrum and everything else. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We're brought to you by Blue Cross, Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue. The official healthcare provider of the Out of Bounds Show. Blue Cross, Blue Shield of Mississippi. Good morning. Welcome in. We're 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. What am I looking at here? 50 minutes from now, Mike Detillier will join us. WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He does LSU stuff, Saints. We'll dive in to Lane deciding to throw 5 billion gallons of lighter fluid on this thing by saying that Ole Miss's past racial problems hurt him from recruiting and getting players. And when that was in the article, everything else could have been in there, and it would have just added a little more fuel to the fire for September 19th. This goes to a spot that drives anybody crazy, but especially Ole Miss alums and fans. Oh, yeah. And man, they combated PR-wise, but this thing didn't drop till we were getting off the air and we were having somebody on. And then when it did, Ole Miss went into, and nobody does optics and PR like Ole Miss. And they went, by 10:30 a.m., they were hard into it because they had read the article on Vanity Fair, which some of you didn't even know that Vanity Fair was still around. Does any of this really surprise me, what Lane's doing? No. I mean, look, here's the deal. Lane Kiffin versus Ole Miss. Who really used who? Okay, Lane used a Power 4 SEC program in Ole Miss to rebuild his image and land a better job. Yeah. Okay? And showed that he had the coaching chops to win. And he did it at a time when COVID changed everything and NIL portal changed everything. And he was one of the top 3 people in all of college football to get it, understand it, and go head first straight at it, which goes back to Monty Kiffin and the NFL stuff. All right, so we've gone over that. Ole Miss used Lane to become relevant in college football, which drives your university in town and so many things making money. When you win SEC games, everything else falls into place. Both sides benefited, but now both sides are acting betrayed. Now, Sun Devil Macy is an Ole Miss fan who actually has a pretty good view on this thing. And he says, Bo, We have scorned lover syndrome. Now, I've got some texts that are listing what all Lane did or did at Ole Miss that that people are claiming he did, that was swept under the rug while he was at Ole Miss, while he was winning. Okay? Now, Dole says the race thing is even unprofessional for Lane. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. It's had they? I guess my first question would be: had they not had the public fall? I mean, had it not been as bad as it was, does he still say that? Like, is there animosity there, and that's one of the reasons he said it?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So he hurts more than we think. Like,
yeah,
we think that it's only Ole Miss,
right? But
that has their feelings hurt
right.
over this divorce that happened after the battle for the Golden Egg.
I'm not saying Lane's mad.
But while he may not be kind of normal, he at the end of the day, everybody has feelings.
He's a little hurt.
Okay.
Now he's not hurt that he's not at Ole Miss. That has nothing to do with this.
I got what you're saying.
Yeah, no.
He's hurt over the fallout on how it all, and is he hurt over not being able to coach? Like, he thought in his mind,
that's correct,
somehow, some way, that he would be able to go to LSU.
Why is that crazy?
And also finish the season coaching Ole Miss.
John Sumrall did it.
Yeah.
I mean, John Sumrall did it. I know it was different, but
John wasn't going to take a bunch of players. I mean, Tulane recruits in like the 90s or something. John Sumrall wasn't going to poach a bunch of players to take to Florida.
No, he wasn't.
I think the deal was, first of all, could Lane have driven Ole Miss to a national championship? I think maybe. I mean, they made it to the semifinals.
Oh, you're talking about? I thought you were
lost by one play.
Team. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so
sure,
you make that one play against Miami with Lane.
Yeah.
And then you got Mendoza and Signetti. I don't know. But the bottom line here is Ole Miss fans love Twitter Lane, Portal Lane, and Villain Lane when it benefited them. Now that he's at LSU taking shots, suddenly he's arrogant and toxic. Now, we know the answer to this question. Did Ole Miss fans ignore who Lane really was because he won games? Hell yes. You didn't care what Lane was doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday?
No.
Or even if he was going to church on Sunday?
No.
You wanted to win and bathe in it on Saturday at all costs. Right?
Nobody's mad at you for it.
He did what's never been done.
Yeah.
At Ole Miss.
I mean, a big thing in life is ROI.
The return on investment on Lane.
Both ways.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, he got super rich.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss and so many people that are connected, businesses and the like, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Made a running truck ton of money. And people are sitting on real estate now where they're like, if I do want to exit out, it's worth 8 times more.
Thank you, Lane. Send him a piece. I mean, send him his cut.
No, they already paid him. He got what he deserved.
Yeah.
No. Nobody lost out. No. Here's the deal. People talk about Lane got all the money that he was promised at Ole Miss. Right. You don't always get this. Lane gave them wins, which is the ROI that you're talking about.
The ROI was higher for them.
Jeff Levy still gets paid, win or lose.
Yeah, negative ROI right
That's not what happens in the private sector. Okay? Zach Selman gets paid regardless and got a raise regardless that he hired Jeff Levy, who's 7-18, 1-15 in conference play. But Lane got all his money, as he should have, and he won. Ole Miss got wins, the feeling of feeling great, of all the celebrations in the Grove and at the restaurants after the games and all that. But this is serious. I mean, when he threw race in this, when he brought up Ole Miss's racial past and then decided to tie it together with recruiting right now, nuclear. Okay?
He's always recruiting. That's just a recruiting tool right there.
And look, Ole Miss fans loved Lane Kiffin when he was trolling other SEC schools, poaching other players, firing off tweets, and winning big games in Oxford.
Yep.
Now he's going to do it in LSU.
Yep.
And like I said, Lane didn't change. His pullover changed. He is the same exact Lane that he was last fall.
And the fall before that, the fall before that,
Yep.
the fall before that.
And I think it's a combination of, no, he doesn't care, but also he doesn't get it. He thinks he gets it.
I think,
All right, do you want to drop the audio? Do we have it? All right. Well, let's take a look at it, and go to. All right, Chris Smith is the guy who wrote the Vanity Fair article. By the way, did you read the article? I need to ask that question. Did you read the article yesterday or this morning? Vanity Fair on Lane Kiffin. The title is "That's Him in the Spotlight: How Lane Kiffin Eagerly Became the Most Polarizing Coach in College Football." And Chris Smith wrote it, and he was on Feinbaum. We're going to try to get that audio here. And all right, we got it. This is Feinbaum interviewing Chris Smith, who wrote the Vanity Fair piece where Lane threw Ole Miss under the bus on race and recruiting.
I asked him a question about thinking through the decision to go from Ole Miss to LSU and how much of it had to do with as much success, as good a run as he'd had at Ole Miss. You know, did he feel like the ceiling there was lower than it would be at LSU, you know, in terms of wins and sustainability, competing for national championships? And his answer, well, a lot of his answers covered a bunch of ground. And, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but he started out talking about, you know, the relative money that the schools have to tap into, the histories of the football programs, you know, the profiles, the images of the schools. And then he took it in a direction that I didn't expect. You know, I wish it was some genius question that I'd asked him, but he volunteered that idea, that couple of sentences, I don't know how many it is, about grandparents sitting in the office talking about, you know, they're not going to let their kid go to Oxford, Mississippi. And I heard him loud and clear. You know, I knew what he was saying. The next day, he seemed to realize that this was going to be inflammatory. And, you know, after practice that day, I was in his office again. And, you know, that's when he added the part about, oh, I don't want this to sound like a shot at Ole Miss. But then he told the same anecdote all over again about, you know, losing out on recruits at Ole Miss because of, he didn't use the words the racial history, but that's essentially what he was saying. And there's, you know, as you say, been an enormous amount of chatter today about the relative racial profiles and histories of Louisiana and Mississippi and all of that. And that's very much worth discussing. But what was really fascinating to me was not so much the facts, which are important, as Kiffin's willingness to go there, to say it publicly. And, you know, clearly indicate that that's an angle he intends to sell to recruits.
Oh, boy. So what about that last part? Clearly, that's an angle that he intends to sell to recruits.
Right.
Now, LSU's going to beat Ole Miss most of the time. Right. However, there are, probably 70-30, but you don't want to lose hold of, like, Mississippi kids. Ooh. You're able to get.
Yeah, for now.
And I don't think it's going to have as big an impact as people think it is on recruiting, but maybe it is. Because LSU recruits at a different level, regardless. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been number one, number two. Lane got there in 5 minutes. They had if you combine their portal class and high school class, they were number one on 247 Sports. In 5 minutes, he landed, if you combine it, which is what you have to do because both of them are super. High school recruiting is still super important.
Yeah.
We've kind of glossed over that the last 3 years as college football coast to coast.
It matters.
Hell yeah, it does. And then portal recruiting is super important. But when you blend them together and you combine it, and Lane was there for 10 minutes and he's already number one in the country, what do you think he's going to do when he starts winning games and he's there for more than a few days?
Yeah, what if he wins one?
Well, he will go to the college football playoff a couple of times before going to the NFL.
All day.
All right. And all right, so I want your reaction to this. What is your reaction to Lane Kiffin versus Ole Miss? And I want your reaction to the Vanity Fair article, and then where we stand today compared to just before the article hit.
Right.
And we know about the September 19th game. I mean, you'd have to believe it's 99.9 or 100% chance game day is going to be there.
Yeah.
And how wild and toxic and crazy and fun and intense that's going to be in Oxford, in the Grove, and in Vaught Hemingway eventually for when the game kicks off. So the Dancing Rabbit Golf text line is 601-885-3776. What is your reaction to the Vanity Fair article where Lane Kiffin throws Ole Miss under the bus for their racial history? We're ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be blue.
WRKS Pickens Jackson.
All systems go.
Live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
This is Out of Order.
Live in the studio. It's the Out of Bounds Show with Low Bounds. Streaming live worldwide on the Out of Bounds radio app. And on your radio at ESPN 105.9. All set? Let's go. The Zone.
Just trying to find some recruits.
We have a saying around our place, we eat off the floor. And if you're willing to eat off the floor, you can be special.
We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. I'm your host, Bo Bounds. The show is brought to you by Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Amazing steaks, 6 private dining rooms, KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. Enjoy the rack of lamb or the bacon appetizer. Pair it with an Elijah Craig Old Fashioned or Elijah Craig on the rocks. The father of bourbon, award-winning Elijah Craig Bourbon. Good morning. Welcome in. Our text line is on fire. Ole Miss fans mattered in hell. Some are actually somewhat in check. Some have lost. I mean, I got stuff about cocaine and this and that and everything else on this text line. When it comes to, people are throwing stuff out left and right. But Lane, the thing was already going to DEFCON 1. Now it's nuclear. Lane Kiffin versus Ole Miss is nuclear. September 19th, you will have more security than when Donald Trump came to the state of Mississippi. There will be more security than that. So I don't know how much security will be, wherever they stay, Tupelo or whatever. Maybe DeSoto County, but wherever they fly in on Friday. All right. And they'll be, it will look like a president's coming into North Mississippi, wherever LSU stays. And then getting them in and out of there is going to be crazy. You mix in fandom, fanaticism, booze, hatred, fuel, nuclear, and really this is what got people in the Vanity Fair article. And it was, the quote, my grandparents aren't going to let me move to Oxford, Mississippi. When Lane was talking about recruiting and Ole Miss's racial history. And when he dropped that, this thing went to a level that I didn't even see. I knew this was going to drive the summer. I knew that LSU at Ole Miss, September 19th, is the game of college football for the state of for the month of September. And quite arguably the biggest game in the history of this state in college football. And I don't even know if you could argue it. I just need to think through it, but I don't think you can. Especially with media being bigger. Everybody has access, streaming. The SEC's bigger. You know the drill. And having a coach that not just jumped schools, but LSU is Ole Miss's second biggest rival behind Mississippi State. And it's a border state. Mississippi State and Ole Miss play LSU 1,000 times in football, but also basketball and baseball and everything else. So, and LSU's a monster. They win in everything. They win multiple national championships. Saban didn't just drive them to win in football. He drove them to win across the board. I know that Burtman had won 5 before, right as Saban was getting there, but y'all know what I mean. So, but their profile was raised so much in this wave of new media. LSU benefited probably more than any brand in college football. Because, Southern Cal is already big, and they can turn it on in 2 minutes. Right. Florida can turn it on. They can get the cast iron to 9,000 degrees in 2 minutes. Texas, teams that have gone away for a long time. But the three bad boys of LSU, Ohio State, and Georgia, they're massive. They're monsters. They're in the right location. They're in states where they don't have any competition. And they're also housed in states where they have a ton of high school talent. So, I mean, it's both. I mean, in Louisiana, as competitive as this state is, and we have competitive people, tough people, blue collar, white collar, tough as hell people, love to play outdoors, love to compete, love the scoreboard. Louisiana,
Yeah.
times 50.
Yeah.
I mean, travel ball tournament, I don't even know how to explain it. Travel ball tournaments are intense and insanely competitive here in the state. You go down there to a big tournament, buddy, they'll say, hold my beer. Hold my beer. Let me show you how we get out. It's just, I don't know. I can't ever put, my first job out of school was with a company in Baton Rouge and spent an enormous amount of time there. And they're wonderful people. They're beyond passionate. Like everything is to the extreme. I mean, I've mentioned 26 years ago, we had a crawfish bowl on a Monday or Tuesday night, and they thought they had to have 150 pounds or something. And I was like, what in the hell are we doing? And it was like 47 cases of beer. I thought I was back on frat row. I mean, I was like, don't we all have to go to work tomorrow? It's just whatever they do, it's all in, even as competitive as we are. And we're all in the Sunshine States, and we're all tough, and we're all coming from our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents of toughness and work and all that, and appreciative of all that.
Yeah.
Like, that's something we like to hang our hat on
doubt.
in the Sun Belt.
Well,
I work. I know how to work.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay?
But in Louisiana, it's a little different.
It's just different. And they're the only
up.
damn game in town, and they have 1.5 million more people.
Maybe that's
and when you factor that in, it doesn't mean that we're not good, that we don't have good athletes, that we can't be good high school teams, junior college teams, and that our colleges and universities can't win. That's not the case.
No.
But when they're the only game in town and have another 1.5 million people, and everybody grows up purple and gold, here it's a combination of maroon and white, red and blue, and still a little bit of others.
Yeah.
You got a little bit of Southern Miss. You got a little bit of the border states. You got huge walk-on street fan base of LSU and Bama.
Yep.
Down there, I mean, you can either get on with the Tigers. You ain't getting promoted at the bank.
No, sir.
You may have gone to Ole Miss or Mississippi State, but all of a sudden you're joining Taft.
You dang right.
You're joining the Tiger Athletic Foundation if you want to get in with that EVP and get promoted in that division, or get the rights. There's this sales territory I want. Well, you see this application? It's to Taft, Tiger Athletic Foundation.
Yep.
Here you go. You just bought 4 seats on the 40-yard line. Go Tigers.
I think people may think.
Also, I want your kids to be wearing purple and gold or yellow, whatever the hell it is.
Whatever, yeah.
This weekend at Sunday school. So I expect your boy to be wearing a purple Peter Millar knit shirt, and I expect your daughter to be wearing a yellow dress. That's it. Now, when you drive back over the state line to Mississippi, you can act like an Ole Miss or Mississippi State fan, but don't even think about posting it on social media. Or I'll send you back to that territory that you don't want.
Right. I mean, I think people.
They run everything. It's not like that in this state.
Well, that's why they
you
win.
split stuff.
That's why we lose.
It's not why we lose. It's just different. So, yeah, I still I've got some answers. I want more. Did you read the Vanity Fair piece yesterday or this morning? Dancing Rabbit Golf text line, 601-885-3776. 601-885-3776. I want to set a record for text on the Out of Bounds show today. Bring it.
trying to find some recruits. Just trying to find some recruits.
It's really despicable. It's really despicable. We ain't going nowhere.
Oh, that's what Lane Kiffin's saying.
We ain't going nowhere.
Hey, until he goes to the NFL, this could be a nightmare for Ole Miss. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Now, it will be beyond glorious if Ole Miss beats him September 19th. Okay? Even if they go to the college football playoff anyway, blah, 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 that will be insanity. The thing is, I think they're going to burn it down either way. If they win, they're going to burn Oxford down. And if they lose, they're going to burn Oxford down. So this is going to be wild. And also, it doesn't matter when the game is played. It could be played at 8 in the morning. But we're assuming game day being there. I mean, where else, right? Yeah. All right, so game day there. And that's even if Ole Miss gets upset against Louisville and LSU gets upset against Clemson game one. I still think the two 1-1 teams going into week 3, or if one of them's 1-1 and one of them's 2-0, it's not going to make game day go, we're not going there. No. But if they're, both 2-0, there's even more sizzle. But this thing's gone nuclear with what Lane said about race in the Vanity Fair article. Were we at DEFCON 1 or are we now at DEFCON 1 with the Vanity Fair article?
They were. Now everyone is.
Okay. War Eagle Rich on the Dancing Rabbit Golf text line says, my reaction to the Vanity Fair Lane Kiffin Ole Miss article is not surprised. Lane is being exactly who we know he is, and Ole Miss fans are reacting exactly how Ole Miss fans react. The text line is 601-885-3776. This is Mac in Vicksburg. Ole Miss fans now feel the same way about Kiffin, right, the same way the rest of the world has from the start. Right. Will from Madison says, hey, blank LSU, this Mississippi boy. All right. I can't say F-bombs on the air. I don't know why. Well, it's 2026. But whatever. Unnamed texter, Kiffin is a turd. Okay. Lee Dog, this is like a WWE buildup for the match on September 19th in Vaught Hemingway. Pappy goes through a number of things talking about Lane possibly. I mean, he's throwing out a bunch of stuff. Chasing a yoga instructor the week of the Kentucky game. Attaboy. I thought that was his law school girlfriend. I'm confused at this point.
Against the wall, baby.
Okay. Let's see. Jake from Yazoo. I hear he can catch a golf ball. I wonder if he can catch a cannonball. Jokes and jokes. Don't give a damn about that man, but we've been fighting this stigma for a long time. It's over, but it's not. It's all over the world. I stand proud of my home state. Jake from Yazoo. All right. I can't figure out what this guy's trying to tell me. Okay, Magic Mike. That Lane playing the race card is a new low for Lane. Okay, that may be fair.
Yeah, that's not out of the question.
I mean, tell me what is a low. All right, so Mike Leach died, and before the funeral, Lane and Ole Miss are trying to poach players from Mississippi State. So you got a guy who dies on the job. Before you can even get his body buried, you're trying to poach 5 to 6 players. That was back when Mississippi State still had the last part of good players. I mean, I know Isaac Smith and Kamario Taylor can play, but it's few and far between right now until we see different. Levy may roll out something crazy in September. I'm not convinced, but you can be and whatever. But my point is, when you say that out, Mike Leach body was not below ground or cremated or whatever he had done. Right. They had not had his funeral at Humphrey Coliseum. And Lane and Ole Miss are trying to poach players. Now Lane goes down the road of racial history and says it publicly.
Yeah.
See, this would be different if Lane just used this in recruiting, but it never got into ESPN.com, Vanity Fair. It doesn't matter what .com.
Right.
This would be different. If Lane is recruiting against Ole Miss on a 4-star or a 5-star offensive tackle or edge rusher, and he says X, Y, and Z on the phone with the kid or the kid's mom, well, it may get out. It may get on a message board. You can't confirm it, deny, who knows what's said. Jackson could step outside, get on the phone. I have no idea what he says.
Yeah, me either.
I can claim, but I know you don't. But anyway, the point is but when we went from toxic to nuclear, in that snap you're exactly right. It was already going to be hell on wheels, WWE type deal. Holy Mary Olzap. Josh says they're really going to burn Oxford down when Ole Miss walks off the field 1-2 after losing to LSU. Damn. That would be as much as Ole Miss. That means they would have lost to Louisville on a neutral field in Nashville and LSU at home.
Both.
If that happens, that will be a dumpster fire with thousands of gallons of lighter fluid.
Yeah, both of which are plausible and possible.
Oh, Ole Miss could be 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, no question.
Easily.
I mean, they're better than Louisville, but that's not a shoe-in game. And just because that game's at home, which is great for Ole Miss against LSU still they got dudes. I mean, I know Ole Miss has Trinidad and Lacey and bringing back those key defensive linemen and interior offensive linemen, but Lane and Baker are going to bring some players into Vaught Hemingway that day too. So we're going to have good players on both sides on both sidelines that day, and future NFL players on both sides and sidelines that day, all up and down. Yeah. There's going to be a bunch of first, second, third, and fourth round picks in Vaught Hemingway on September 19th. A bunch from both schools. So anyway, Mike Detillier coming up in 8 minutes, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He'll join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Want to say good morning, welcome in. The show is brought to you by Taste, Italian Kitchen, and the Renaissance. So you've got Taste in Ridgeland and Taste in Starkville. Wonderful place. The bar's cool. They've got private dining in both spots, but even more in Ridgeland. So if you're looking for some private dining, they've got 1, 2, 3 rooms, about to have 4. Their wine room's incredible. It is beautiful. It's the room right when you walk in and you're checking in with the hostess stand. It's to the right. It's gorgeous. And great place to entertain, or you got a corporate or small wedding party, or, maybe the start of a bachelorette party or whatever you got going on. The bar kind of screams Tito's martinis, Aperol spritzes, a really good glass of Elijah Craig bourbon. It's gorgeous. It's one of the prettiest bars. I mean, the one in Starkville that they did was nice. This one's even bigger and nicer. And I know you've noticed if you've driven by the Renaissance, right by Taste, that outdoor area, it's going to be climate controlled with a full bar and some kitchen access. It's going to be incredible. Book your reservation, lunch or dinner, tasteitaliankitchen.com. Mike Detillier coming up next on Lane versus Ole Miss. If the gloves were on, they're off now.
Trying to find some recruits. Trying to find some recruits.
It's really despicable.
Here we go. Out of bounds, ESPN 1059 The Zone, brought to you by Sound and Communications. If you're looking for a video wall for your business, church, athletic facility, lobby, hotel, soundcomav.com. They're the leader. Video walls, sound and communications, soundcomav.com. From Texas A&M to Mississippi State to who knows how many other schools, Southern Miss, they have done work. Athletic facilities, churches, businesses, soundcomav.com. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Our guests join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. We welcome in Mike Detillier, LSU Insider, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Mike, when we already knew this thing between Lane and Ole Miss, as we've talked to you, was toxic. Now it's gone nuclear. When you saw and read the Vanity Fair article for the first time, and I think he would have been okay, it would have still raised, the level of hatred and animosity, but I think it'd have been fine until he dropped the racial history part in the article. What was your initial reaction when you saw the piece, Mike?
And nothing he says is going to shock me. I'll be honest with you. I just think that, he loves the attention of all this. He has become like the Aaron Rodgers of college football coaching. Knowing anything that he says is going to get a lot of publicity, good or bad. He's going to say it. Did a recruit or recruits make a comment that their grandfathers or grandmothers made a comment about Ole Miss's past? I believe that that's probably true. That's probably true. You get people once they get a certain age, they sort of do live a lot back in the past and feelings about things that happened yesteryear. Is that the reason he left Ole Miss? Come on. That's not true. That's not the reason he left. But it is you dealing with the one kind of deal about Coach Kiffin is that he is a lightning rod on a stormy day. He is going to find that stroke of lightning in the sky. And the writer actually let him try to get out of it, and he went right back into it. So it was, for me, sort of calculating. Because if the writer says, I tried to go back to it and let him get out, and he went right back into it.
What do you do?
Bo, to be honest with you, does this really surprise you?
Nothing he does surprises me, just like you.
Exactly. So I understand the furor with this. This is, again, gasoline thrown on the fire with LSU, Ole Miss, that sort of thing. And, I tell LSU fans, just remember, everywhere he sort of has left, there has been a nuke that goes off behind him. It makes you think that this won't happen when he leaves LSU.
Right.
So for me, it's not a real surprise. Do I believe that recruits did tell him things maybe their older relatives said? I believe that. Do I believe that's the reason he left Ole Miss? No. Come on. That's really stretching things really, really good. So, but again, you understand who you're dealing with, and you look back at his past, and he has said some strange things. So that's just who he is. It is a great story in sort of a dead period for things other than if you, I guess, maybe covering an NBA team that's in the playoffs. it's the lightning rod, and boy, did they hit it! They're going to sell a lot of Vanity Fair magazines or get a lot of hits online.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
Yeah, they damn sure are. Mike Detillier, LSU Insider, WWL Radio, New Orleans. He joins us on 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Mike, as far as divorce, you're well aware of how much we love our sports in the Sun Belt and Southeast. You're in it like I am every day. But as far as divorces in the SEC, I think this has got, and we've had some doozies. I mean, hell, Cal, Kentucky, Arkansas, I know that's not the main sport, but there's been some unbelievable divorces. And look, Saban, even though there was a jump in between, as you well know, you lived it, Saban going from LSU to Miami to Alabama and then winning, good Lord, that hurt. That was salt in the wound. But to me, this is the number one divorce in the history of the league. How do you see it?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, and we're not even we like 6 months into it.
Right.
Just think if it gets to be a year, what more is coming? The LSU Saban divorce, having lived that and covered that, Saban left LSU because I think he really wanted to give the NFL a try as a head coach. That had been something he had spoke about, and it didn't work out. And then the one opening happens at Alabama, at that time, and it probably, I thought for a long time, was the rival with LSU, but maybe that's not that case today. But, so there was a middle ground there, and that was dislike and hatred for Nick, but I think for LSU fans, it was more fear because they saw what he had done at LSU. And the fear was he's going to do the exact same thing at Alabama. Their fear came to fruition. It actually happened.
Yeah.
Their biggest fear about what Coach Saban could do actually did happen. This is built a different way because this is a straight jump from Ole Miss to LSU. And then it's sort of the firebomb behind it. Because, come on, Coach Saban didn't say anything bad about LSU and has praised, being at LSU and living in that area and everything else. This is a totally different entity than what has happened between Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss and LSU. Totally different. But the divorce was not right off the bat. In essence, him leaving, he went to the NFL. With Coach Cal, he didn't win enough, at Kentucky. Didn't win enough for Kentucky fans. And they felt, we'll get a guy in here, and he's going to tear up the SEC. Tell me how that's going.
No.
Tell me how that's happened real quickly. So, I just see John Summerall, how he left, and it's not an SEC school, but how he left Tulane to go to Florida. And, people that involved with Tulane still, they a little miffed that he left. And I get that. You lose I think a world-class coach to Florida. I understand that part. But it wasn't messy. But everywhere Lane has left, it's been messy, right? Everywhere. It's been real messy. So I would say, Bo, if you categorize it that way, that would have to be, it's on top of Mount Everest.
What was your Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show, Afternoon Drive, WWL Radio? He does radio hits, TV hits, and LSU stuff and Saints and so on. What was your show, you and Bobby's show, like yesterday, Mike D?
Some of it concerning that, a lot of it having to do do with Saints rookie. Because one thing, it's like a pocket here. And that was Saints rookie. 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 And that was Saints there are Saints fans. Man, I don't want to talk no LSU in the off season. Talk LSU during the season.
Okay.
I want to talk Saints, and so it was a bit of a mix between the two on how it went down. But the one thing here, Saints, and especially with the Tyler Shuck situation, it sort of overrides a lot of things.
All right, let me ask you this, Mike D. Then
we're just an hour away from Baton Rouge,
right?
But it's really hot there. Where here, it's sort of the mix between LSU football and Saints football.
Okay. One thing that jumped out at me, and you and I hit, it's funny, you and I hit on this last week or the week before with Monty Kiffin, but in the article, what jumped out at me, and I think you and I are on the same page here, is Lane moved 7 times before he was 18 years old. And Monty looked at life once he got in the NFL, as you well know, Mike, covering the Saints for 40 years, as all of his jobs were purely transactional. And I think it's hard for collegiate college sports fans to look at it like that. But the NFL and MLB and NBA, that's how it is. And I think that's where Lane, he just doesn't have any emotional ties to damn near anything because of moving 7 times before he was 18 and Monty always looking at his career like it was transactional. Is that your takeaway too, Mike?
I really believe your youth and childhood has a lot to do with how you react to things as you get older. Some people will debunk that, but I'm just telling you, I think it does have a lot to do with it. Monty at one time, for a short stint, was the defensive coordinator here with the Saints. And he left, I think it was 2 years here, and he left to go to Tampa. So, yeah, I think everything, and don't we live in the transactional world today of college athletics, players and coaches? Now, a lot of older people don't want to believe that,
right?
But it is true. And we talked about that a couple of weeks back. That is a part of what has changed in college and also in the pros. When I first started, covering the NFL game, it wasn't free agency. The team that picked you, they had your rights forever, unless they traded you or cut you loose. That all changed with free agency come into play. And I will say, Bobby had a lot to do with that because he went to federal court because he sat out a season. And once they got him on the court stand and, they heard him go for about 2 hours on 2 questions, that was enough for Judge Doty to rule in the player's favor. And he was a big part of the NFL getting free agency. I do think we do live in that transactional world where, with what happened with Monty and now what's happened to Lane. And I know a lot of assistant coaches, they're okay. If you go through an 8-year time span with them, they've gotten 4 jobs. They jump from one job to the next, to the next, to the next. That wasn't the case years ago. It is today. You looking to get a better job, more money, an opportunity to ascend to a better position. And, Lane has wrote the book on that.
We're talking Lane Kiffin with Mike Detillier, WWL Radio New Orleans, joining us on the Out of Bounds show, brought to you by Sound and Communications for your next video wall for your business, church, or school. So when you're sizing, this is going to be beyond crazy, his first year. When you're sizing up this roster and what he was able to do in a short period of time, in 30 days, do you feel like this is a big boy roster that could be a team that could go to the college football playoffs and go deep in the college football playoffs? Or do you think that Lane's going to need another cycle, Mike D?
I think this is a team that could get into the playoffs. As far as getting deep, That's a difficult answer because we haven't seen them play as a group. Now, the one thing I do give him, and Glasscockle came with him from Ole Miss, is that they've assembled a very talented roster. That there are some pressure points here. One is that you went through your spring, for the most part, with a limited Sam Levitt at quarterback, him still dealing with the Liz Frank injury. Now, he looks as though all's going to be a go for the summer, and he'll be back in the saddle. Sam Levitt, under that system, I think can take you a long way. LSU's problems have been also up front along the offensive line. They have not been able to run the football. He's made it a point of interest in the spring to really become a much more physical team. We've always had receivers, and I know they went out and get a bunch of new ones, but, man, they've always been loaded at wide receiver. And Trey Green is just a freak athlete at the tight end position. I'm not too concerned about them on offense. My biggest concerns, I'll say it today, and I've said it, is going to be on defense. One, can Whit Weeks stay healthy? They're a much better team when he's been out on the field than when he's not. They got some people that, it's next man up. The next man ain't that good. Okay? But they repeat stuff they hear a coach say. A coach says it a lot of times because he's got to. But even he doesn't really, really believe that the next man is going to be as good as you lose a star player. So Whit Weeks has a lot to do with them defensively. But I'll be honest with you, Bo, up the middle, they've had two freshmen came in midterm that were running with the ones in Richard Anderson and Deuce Gerald. My thing is, if freshmen are beating out your upperclassmen,
yikes.
It's a big – I don't care how good the freshmen are. And I saw Richard Anderson. He's an unbelievable player, and I think he'll get a lot of playing time this year. Deuce Gerald has been kind of the standout of the freshmen. But, man, that's a concern for me. That really is, that you've got two freshmen already that look to be getting extensive. What happened to your upperclassmen there? So it's more so on defense and more so up front than it is in the secondary or at linebacker. I think they'll be good there with TJ and with Weeks, and they have some depth at linebacker. But, man, up front is the big question mark, and can you get a pass rush? Name me the last great LSU pass rusher.
It's been a minute.
Okay, Harold Perkins did it 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year.
His first year?
That was it. His freshman year. And we've seen, like, Arden Key was able to do it for, 1 year.
Right.
Okay. But a lot is put on the back of Pritzwell, Human Malin, and Jordan Ross, two transfer guys. Can they give you that pass rush that this team has not consistently got? So could they be a team that gets to 10 wins and gets into the playoffs? Yes. How far they'll go, that part, I think, for anybody, you would just speculate. Now, you look at Notre Dame's schedule and say, how could they not? Okay,
True.
Take a good look at Notre Dame's schedule. How could they not, get into that and be a team that could advance? But in the SEC, man, they chew you up pretty good. You get beat up in this league. So I think what he did in year one, he used the expertise of understanding the transfer portal and being able to get skilled players to really help, especially at the quarterback spot, at wide receiver, here and there as far as on defense. But it's a team that finishes. Look at the end of LSU's schedule. they play Alabama, Texas, Tennessee.
Yikes.
Now, I'm not sure about where Tennessee's going to be at that point, because I do think the heat is up big time on Josh Heupel.
Wow.
But, man, playing Alabama and Texas at the end is going to be really tough. Really, really tough for LSU.
I got a couple of minutes. It may be impossible to handicap now because of the portal. Who do you think has the better roster going into 2026? LSU or Ole Miss?
I would give the nod to Ole Miss because I know how good Trinidad is at quarterback. And I know how good Kawan Lacey is at running back. Those two elements cannot be debated. And so I would give them the advantage from a roster standpoint. But it's awfully close.
Okay.
If you look at talent, player per player per player, it's awfully close. But I'd give Ole Miss, and I've seen people picking them to win 7 games. And I'm like, 7 games or 8 games? Are you kidding me? With that quarterback and that running back? You got to be kidding me. But, and just for me to have those guys return was a huge win. Now, what happens after 2026, you and I could just speculate on. But for 2026, if you think Ole Miss is going away, you trying to kid yourself. They are going to be in the middle of all of this. And I think the team with the most pressure is certainly Texas, because you potentially could have Arch Manning, Coleman at receiver, Goolsby at left tackle, Colin Simmons at defensive end. You could be like Ohio State and have 4 of the top 10 players in the 2027 draft. You don't think there's some heat turned up?
No.
In Austin, Texas,
doubt.
for Sarkisian to win?
No doubt, Mike D. And
no doubt about it.
For our listeners, Texas plays Ohio State at home. Week 2 and week 4, they have to go to Tennessee. Sark needs to do some work in the month of September. We talked about LSU's tough schedule. Clemson at home, at Ole Miss, Louisville, neutral field, and hosting LSU. There's several teams that have to have their damn guard up in the first 3 to 4 weeks. Mike D is awesome. Mike D, thank you, buddy. We'll talk next week.
Bo, just get extra security for LSU Ole Miss. That's all I can tell them.
No.
I don't know if they'll have enough for that one.
No doubt. National Guard for days. That was Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. It was powered by Sound and Communications. If you need a video wall for your gym, arena, lobby, conference room, conference center, your next video wall is powered by Sound and Communications. They are the leader and the experts. SoundcomAV.com. SoundcomAV.com.